Now, as y'all know, I've been a long time and stalwart defender of metalcore against the true metalhead metalcore isn't metal crowd. But this week's new metal releases do have me kinda understanding. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, JonBarbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's album art of the week. It's the weekend, and that means we got new metal albums to talk about, and I'm bringing you my 5 favorite. But before we do the top 5, as is customary, we always talk about the big band's album releases of the week, so let's do that. First up, there's a new album from the Symphonic Metal legends, Epica, with a spiral. And check out this album art. That is contender for album art of the week right there. Look at all these hands holding this symbolic sigil of some sort, but it's also stabbing through their palms. That's metal. All right, long time metalcore defender here. People will say metalcore is not metal, and I say no, it's just metal that you don't like. It's the same thing as me with power metal. It's just metal that I don't like. That doesn't mean it's not metal. But here we have Magnolia Park with Vamp. And I'm not disrespecting this band. This is probably a really great rock and roll band. But to me, this sounds like something that should be on terrestrial radio. This is kind of metalcore, but really more emo rock. And here's where I think the problem is. The term metalcore is way too big of an umbrella for all the bands that it encompasses. There's no way that this sound right here should be in the same genre as Killswitch Engage or All That Remains or even Bad Omens. You know, Metallica and early Slayer, they don't sound anything alike, but they still are both thrash bands. They don't have to sound identical, but this is a completely different genre. Y'all let me know what you think. And last up, before we do the top 5, one more big record. And speaking of metalcore, modern metalcore, Within Destruction with Animal. And to me, this is more metalcore that I would argue is metal. There's at least metal riffs in here, and it's quite heavy at times. So to me, this qualifies more as metal and not just hard rock. It's still catchy, it's still got a lot of pop elements, but to me, the mere presence of pop should not disqualify a band from being metal. After all, solo era Ozzy, he was a pop star. That's what was popular at the time. Hair metal, those were all pop stars. So to me, pop does not disqualify a band from being metal. It just has to have, as Metal Archives would put it, the metal riff in there somewhere. Let me know what you think. Now let's go to the underground. Here's my top 5. Coming in at number 5, Escrota with Blasphemia. This is crossover thrash out of Brazil. And y'all, my Spanish is really bad, and my Portuguese is even worse. So I'm sure I mispronounced that and put the inflections in the wrong place. Text is on the screen just in case. And as always, every band's Bandcamp links will be in the description so that these records are easy to find. I gotta say, I really dig this record because of the intensity of it. It's a really raw, old school sounding thrash record, but it's got harsh female vocals. They really take that punk aspect and put it in there thick with the scathing social commentary. Plus, you know I like it groovy, and their rhythm section has this groove locked in. So make sure you check out Escrota. Coming in at number 4, Sumerian Tombs with Age of Eternal Night. This is black metal out of Germany. I love this because when they do the black metal parts, it's the black metal that we all know and love. It's furious and intense and abrasive. However, this record is highly dynamic because there's multiple sections in each song in between all of these bursts of black metal fury that are more musical. I say melodic, and to metalheads that means soft. Definitely not soft, but they just explore sonically more places besides just tremolo picking some chords. There's lots of moods and atmospheres here, and then they don't wear out their welcome. Right back to the Satan. Coming in at number 3, Cytotoxin with Biographite Tech Death out of Germany. Now, there's no shortage of bands who make extreme metal about nuclear apocalypse, but this band, they do it with furious intensity and a different bent to the themes. So there are lots of songs here about the environmental damage that happened in Chernobyl, and there's songs that celebrate the heroics of the firefighters who were clearing the nuclear rubble. Celebrating heroic figures like that's normally the realm of power metal, but here it's done in tech death. And speaking of tech death, I like how blistering fast and heavy this is without being a bunch of technique exercises. It's not, let me do the arpeggios as efficiently as possible so that I can get maximum speed. It's still quite musical. My only complaint is it's so intense all the time that probably around the 9th song or so, I got a little bit of fatigue. I think your mileage will vary on where that will fatigue you at. Perhaps Cytotoxin just has more metal endurance than I do because they really bring it the entire time. I'm not asking for a ballad, y'all. Just, give me one mid-tempo groove for a minute and then bash me over the head some more. Coming in at number 2, Mesa with The Spin. This is doom metal out of Italy. Now, a lot of this type of doom metal sounds the same to me. There's a lot of bands out there with this sort of stoner doom groove, but it's got a ethereal female singer that croons with a lot of thick reverb, and that is definitely present here. However, there's a lot more on top of that highly differentiates Mesa from their doom metal peers. There's a lot of goth lead guitar accompaniment on this, and it gives it this sort of swagger, the cool that can only come from the type of people that have easy smiles, even though they wear nothing but black all the time. Check out the song The Dress, which is worth the price of admission alone. That song is so cool, so groovy, and after, I don't remember, the second chorus or so, there's this instrumental section with noir trumpets and spacey bass swells, really progressive stuff, but it doesn't go too far in that direction. It still sounds very organic and analog, just an incredible band, one that I am going to be watching in the future. I really dug this one. And hey, before we do number 1, something really cool showed up, and I just want to share it with y'all. There's been a long time metalhead out there who has been a part of this community for a long time. His name is Tim Ray, and he shared this with me, and I just immediately dropped what I was doing, and I was like, that's so cool. I have to buy this from you. So I bought this from him, and I made this shirt. I wasn't planning on doing more merch until the winter. Y'all know how I've been doing it. You do one design every season, and then when that season ends, that design ends forever, and then the next design comes. But this is so cool. It is so fitting to the show, and it perfectly encapsulates what we're trying to do here. Here we have the new Heavy Metal Philosophy logo, and it's not going to be seasonal. This is in the shop forever. The t-shirt will have this cool-ass death metal with Greek lettering and the Cabin in the Woods hidden in the font on the front, and on the back, it will have my saying that metal helped me endure my life, but philosophy helped me improve my life. That will be on the back. And then the tank top will be just the logo if you don't want that saying on your back. Plus, not having print on both sides will make it a little bit cheaper. So those two options, I had to have a tank top. But I am just so thrilled with what Tim did here. I had to have it. And I know some of y'all are going to dig this too. So make sure you go to JonBarbas-shop.fourthwall.com, links in the description, and get you the new Greek Cabin heavy metal philosophy merch. And let me just say, I want to reiterate, I wasn't planning on doing this. Like, my budget for merch has already been spent, and I haven't made back what I paid the artist for this season's merch drop yet. So please don't flood my inbox with a bunch of art. Tim is a long-time metalhead out there in the community. So we've got that relationship, please don't flood me with art. I'm not going to just buy everybody's art. I'm already over budget. I just thought this was so cool. I have to make an exception. So check that out. Again, links in the description. Now let's do number one. Coming in at number one, In the Woods with Ultra. This is gothic, progressive black metal out of Norway. And these songs, several of these vocal melodies have been stuck in my head all week long. Now, earworms and melodic and catchy, these are not words that I normally use to describe black metal, but that's because on this record, it's more gothic and progressive than it is black. There's not a lot of black metal screeching on here, though it does happen during the crescendos. It's more clean singing, and some of the lyrics are just really striking, like, I scream, I beg, I turn to God, but he's a cunt and he's a bastard, just a fraud. Now, these are very black metal lyrics, but when you hear the way he sings it, it's not all jaundiced and depressing like normally. If I didn't know the lyrics to this album, I would find a lot of these songs to be uplifting. There's just a tinge of the forlorn on here, just enough to give it that vibe. To me, this sounds less like black metal's typical frustration with reality and more like a grizzled old wisdom and acceptance that life is meaningless, nobody's coming to save us, and yet we persist. So what happens here is I'm able to listen to this record without it dragging me down and still really enjoy the musicianship. Plus, every now and again, they give you that injection of that good black metal. That's why it's number one. And we're not done yet because we still got Dealer's Choice and Album Art of the Week. Now, as y'all know, Dealer's Choice allows me to break my own rules. Maybe I can pick something that's not metal. Maybe I can pick an EP since we only do albums on this one. Well, this week, I think it's a weird set of rules that I'm breaking. I don't always pick who was my podcast guest for number one. However, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Exiled Hope and her new record, Apocrypha, which is this highly composed, blackened power metal. It's a concept record, and there's a lot of themes on it about free will, so y'all know. As soon as I found that out, I was like, okay, this is definitely going in the collection. I'm obsessed with that topic, and I love the angle that Sophia from Exiled Hope took on this one, where she made this version of the story from the point of view of one of the bad guys, because they also have to struggle with whether or not they have free will. Are they destined to do bad guy things, or can they overcome them? That is a brilliant angle, and I really dug it. And I'll have a link to the episode of the podcast at the end so y'all can hear what Sophia's thoughts are on free will and the heroic journey. So again, that link will be at the end, but first, Album Art of the Week. My favorite album art this week came from Putrid Ophal with Obliterated Life. Of course, death metal out of France. Now, y'all know I normally try to shy away from the more standard, heavy metal album covers. I want it to be a little bit different. So very rarely will you see me pick gory album covers, even though I love gory album covers. I'm trying to celebrate people that do things differently. And if you're going to do a gory album cover, this is really cool. It doesn't have to be gore on every single inch of the album cover. There can be some negative space here, which makes the gore pop even more. And it doesn't always have to be cartoon characters and zombies or whatnot, axe murderers. Just having this hand here with the gore on it, with the white background, you don't really know what happened. This is cool. This is curiosity generating, and it utilizes the space and the contrast of colors. It doesn't blend in with all the other album art that came out this week that all looks like standard heavy metal album covers. Really dug it. Check out Putrid Fall. So like I said, before I go, I'm going to put a link right here, but not just quite yet. I want to say, if you liked any of these bands, hit that like button, because by watching to the end and hitting the like button, that is the best way to support heavy metal philosophy. And by being here right now, hearing what I'm saying right now, that really helps, and I highly appreciate it. If you want to support a little bit further, head to the shop and get that new merch. Shout out to Tim Ray. His art is magnificent. The Greek Cabin merch drop is live now, and this one is permanent. I'm not getting rid of this one. I don't care what season it is. Now, like I said, if you want to see me and Sophia talk about free will versus determinism, plus some music law stuff, because she's also training to be a music attorney. That's super cool. But more so the free will stuff all over the backdrop of blackened symphonic power metal. Just click right here. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.